our next talk. Whoever was here this morning, we had starting a tech startup in 5 days. Maybe someone managed to do it in a few hours and already thinking about exits. Who knows? Either way, we have Naveen Tukaram today from NT Capital, and he has done 5 successful exits and averaged over 3 billion. So welcome, Naveen, to the stage. Woo!
Tack så mycket. Test. I'm not sure who put that picture up for me, but I like it. Architect your exit. Architect your exit. Now, my talk is titled The Epic Exit, but to have an epic exit, and an exit usually means you sell your company for a lot of money, but an exit can also mean the start of something new, something exciting, something inspiring. But to have an epic exit, you need to design it. You need to architect your exit. And when I think of people who have been brave enough to do that, I don't think of Elon or Mark Zuckerberg. I actually think of my dad. And he's actually part of the reason why I spend so much time in Sweden now. But I know what you're thinking. You probably think I spend time in Sweden for one reason. Samma tida. Ursäkta mig, do we know the second lyric to that song? I'm going to try one more time. Samma tider. Okay, I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. So, yes, Sweden has epic summers and an epic amount of unicorns, the most billion-dollar private companies per capita of anywhere in the world. But I've actually been coming to Sweden, or actually Scandinavia, my whole life. My parents are from South India, and when my dad was a couple years out of college, 25 or 26, he was an engineer, and he was working in an engineering company. And in India, back in those days, if you had a job out of school, you were doing very, very well. But my dad wasn't satisfied with just having a job. He wanted to architect his exit, in his case, outside of India, maybe Europe or the United States, so he could start his own company. But you know, he had no money, and back in those days, it was very tough to leave the developing world. But one day, he was working in this factory, and he saw this huge machine that was broken, and it wasn't doing anything. And that day, he noticed it had a small address stamped on the side. Some funny address in a place called Denmark. Has anyone heard of this place called Denmark? I hear it's, okay, good, 3 of you. I hear it's a nice country down south. So most of us would have walked by this machine which was broken and said, you know, whatever, it's a broken machine. But for him, so he was so focused on architecting his exit that he decided to write that company a letter and say something like this. He said, you know, India's a poor country, your machine's broken, you need to teach me how to use it, and sent the letter off, never expecting a response. But about a month later, he gets an envelope in the mail, and he opens it up, and it reads something like this. It says, yes, we will train you how to use this machine. And yes, we will pay you a little something, you know, 10 Danish kroner a month or something, while you're here in town. But no, we will not pay for your plane ticket. So for my dad, who had no money, this was basically a no. Nice try, but he could never afford to fly to Denmark. But he is entrepreneurial even amongst other entrepreneurs. So he did something that I think most of us would think is crazy. He sold his motorcycle, which definitely didn't look like this, which was all he had. He borrowed a bunch of money from a family friend, so now he's in debt. And then he liquidated his dad's entire life savings just to buy this one-way ticket to Denmark. But he didn't tell his family and friends is that he didn't even have a job in Denmark. He really had a 90-day work permit. So after 90 days, he'd be deported out of the country, back to India, with no job, no life savings, and definitely no motorcycle. But my dad said, you know what? I'll figure it out when I get to Denmark, wherever this place Denmark is. And since I'm standing here today, you probably already know the story ended pretty well. He worked in Denmark for a while, then Germany, then Canada, and then finally in the United States, and then in the US for 7 years before saving enough money to start his first company. So it's just a reminder of how lucky we are to live in countries like Sweden, countries like the United States, where we don't have to risk everything we have, travel all over the world, and work for 10 years just to start our first company. And when I think about my journey, I've been looking and starting and running companies in the area of automation for almost 7 or 8 years. And I think for all of us in the startup space, automation is going to be a very important theme. So I just want to touch on that for a second. And there's a few ways to think about automation. There's artificial intelligence. Do you guys watch Jeopardy? Do we know what Jeopardy is? Sweden? Yeah, okay, cool. So this is when IBM's Watson actually beat the best Jeopardy champions at Jeopardy, which is pretty amazing. Think about the implications of that. And then, of course, robots. I'm using the self-driving car as an example of robots because it is a robot. It's autonomous, right? It does everything on its own. It reacts in real time to changes in a dynamic environment and then goes on its mission, getting you from point A to point B. Over the next 10 years, just in the US, there are 5 million jobs that will be affected by that. There's truck drivers, taxi drivers, delivery people. So multiply that across the entire world. Self-driving cars and robots over the next 10 years are going to have a huge impact on our society and our culture. And then finally, something you guys are all very familiar with, I'm sure, just plain old software. We don't think about software as being automation, but it really is, right? Just take the very simple example that we all can think of, the travel industry. How many of you guys use travel agents? All right, some nice people raise their hands. I don't use travel agents either, but over the last 10 or 15 years, the travel industry has pretty much grown every year. So it's much bigger than it was 10 or 15 years ago. But in most countries in the world, there are 30 or 40% less travel agents. So a lot bigger industry, much fewer people managing all that spend. And that's going to happen across every sector, whether it's logistics, whether it's self-driving cars, whether it's retail, whether it's healthcare. Automation is a huge trend. And actually, my first tech startup, a company called Quickie, which I'll show you a quick demo now, was a company that tried to automate the creation of videos. What does that even mean, to automate the creation of videos? Well, we're going to find out. Let's see if this works.
Welcome to Quickie for the iPad. Quickie combines thousands of sources into beautiful, narrated presentations covering millions of topics.
George Timothy Clooney is an American actor, film director, producer, and screenwriter. For his work as an actor,
Mixing art and science, the future of...
So what Quickie was doing there was reading a Wikipedia article on George Clooney, taking all the pictures and videos from the internet and putting it together, adding a voice, and automatically creating that video. So our first product automated the creation, basically made every single Wikipedia entry, all like 18 million of them at the time, into a video just like that. Now, I think that's pretty cool today, but 6 or 7 years ago, actually almost 8 years ago, in Silicon Valley, this was really groundbreaking. And because Silicon Valley was a very small place, we got an opportunity back then to launch at Techcrunch Disrupt. Do you guys read Techcrunch? All right, well, a bunch of people read Techcrunch. So Techcrunch is basically the Wall Street Journal for tech news. And so Techcrunch Disrupt was the biggest competition in the world at the time, probably is today. There was only one problem. We didn't have a product. Small problem. Now, we had a demo like the one I showed you, but nothing that you'd want to demo in front of your entire industry. Now, you might be saying, well, you're a tech startup. You got to go for it, right? You got to do the best you can. But let's think about that for a second. If you demo your company in front of your entire industry, every investor, every engineer, every potential colleague, and you fail, you're not going to get funded, you won't be able to hire people, and you're definitely not getting acquired. So you might as well just go home if you fail in that demo. So it was a huge, huge risk. But ultimately, we decided to launch at Techcrunch Disrupt, which, by the way, when they let us know, was only 8 weeks away. So our developers basically didn't sleep for those 8 weeks, and we launched at Techcrunch Disrupt. And sometimes when you have a good plan and you've really architected your exit, great things can happen. This is a picture a few seconds after we won Techcrunch Disrupt, not really the highest resolution picture, but you can see me here right next to a large bottle of champagne, always a great place to find yourself, next to large bottles of champagne. So that was a great day at Quickie, and sometimes at startups you do have some amazing days. After we launched TechCrunch, for a very short period of time, we were the hottest startup on the entire planet. And because of that, a lot of investors started chasing us, and we were able to raise $9 million in our Series A at a very healthy valuation for a company that didn't have a live product, which was pretty cool. And when we actually launched the product, it was pretty crazy. CNN actually backed up a satellite truck into our offices to cover our launch. I have no idea what they were covering. How do you cover the launch of an internet site? But they came anyway. So that was a very cool day, and some of the highs we felt in running that startup. Now, along with the highs, we all know come a lot of lows. And I can't tell you all the stories that happened over the next 2 or 3 years at Quickie, but you can imagine there were some tough times. We actually launched that product that you saw. It had millions of downloads, iPad App of the Year, 5-star ratings, but it didn't make any revenue. Okay, cool. So we launched a second product that was similar for businesses. Same thing, a lot of awards, but it wasn't making any revenue. So fast forward through that experience over 2 years. These are our new fancy offices in New York City. We moved the company from Silicon Valley to New York City to be closer to our customers. And at the time this picture was taken, it looks all nice, but we only had about maybe $1.5 million of the 9 or 10 million that we raised in the bank. So we burned through 80–90% of our capital. And as the chief operating officer, someone who's in charge of all the people and payroll, I didn't know how I was going to be able to keep the lights on and pay these folks in just 6 to 12 months from that point. And we really did not know what we were going to do. It was a very, very dark time. So we came up with what can only be described as a crazy plan. I'm using Van Gogh's Starry Night to represent a crazy plan because he was known to be quite crazy. And the plan went something like this. We would fire half our staff because we just couldn't afford them anymore. We would then shut down both those products, the one we'd spent millions of dollars and years building. And then and our investors were going to think we're absolutely nuts. And then we would take our little remaining resources and create an iPhone app in the hardest, most competitive market on the planet, the app ecosystem. And we would create an app that basically took all the pictures and videos from your iPhone camera roll and turned it into a little movie, kind of like the demo you saw, but for your own pictures and videos. But we had no money to market it. So we had to get hundreds of thousands of downloads in just the first few weeks to get the free marketing. And then, before we go bankrupt, we need to sell the company, not to anyone, but hopefully to Marissa Mayer of Yahoo, because Yahoo was buying all the hot mobile tech startups at that time. Now, if anyone has heard of a crazier plan in business, I would love to hear it, because this one did not make a lot of sense. It was logical, but a very low probability plan. And you would think we had no choice, but we had a great choice. Just quietly fail, because startups fail all the time. No one's going to notice that we're not around anymore. But that wasn't a big option for us, because we were not going to lose our investors' money, and we wanted to make something for ourselves and our employees. So actually, we started the plan, and we came up with this. So when that product launched, we had absolutely nothing. We had We're running out of money, had to fire half our staff, and had 6 months left to go. And when we launched that product, we actually won Apple Editor's Choice, which means that for virtually every iPhone in the world, when you opened up the App Store, the first logo you would see was Quickie. And as you can imagine, we got those hundreds of thousands of downloads, not in weeks, but in days. But we knew that winning an award is not good enough, right? We were smart this time, and we had to make sure we sold the company, but it was a race against time. The good news is that all the big boys started calling, the Samsungs, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Yahoos, but we didn't know if we could make a deal happen before we ran out of money. But again, sometimes when you architect your exit, great things can happen. And this was our website, the Quickie website, the day we were acquired by Yahoo for $50 million, which, by the way, we had literally $0 in the bank when the deal went down. And that's how fast things can change in technology in Silicon Valley. One day you're a hero, the next day you're a zero, and fortunately at Quickie, we were very fortunate to end up as heroes at the end of our journey. But that was a few years ago. And today is not about that great story. Today is about you. It's about your entrepreneurial journey, because you guys are the architects of not our past, but our future. Not only of your own future, but of my future too. You're the architects of all our futures. But to architect your exit, you have to have a bold and clear vision of your future. How many of you guys have some vision of what you want to do in the future? Some idea? Whether it be your customer smiling, the people, keep your hands up, inspire your neighbor. How many of you guys have, I know if you're in this room, you must have a vision for your future, because you wouldn't hang out in a castle on a Saturday if you didn't have a vision for your future, right? Okay, good. Drop your hands. And as you know from your own stories, your own lives, and my stories, that over time, your vision will be tested. Do I have permission to test your vision? Someone say absolute. I said someone say absolute. Absolute, great. So, enthusiastic audience today. So, the best way to test your vision is to close your eyes. And I have 2 minutes and 13 seconds left. For the next minute or so, can we all just please close our eyes? Just for a moment. You can do it. Take a deep breath. Let it out. Sit up straight in your chair. And in your mind's eye, I want you to see that vision for your future. Make it bold. Make it colorful. Make it take up your whole mind space, no black space. Make it the entire vision in your mind. And don't settle for a picture. Make it a movie. Make it a video. Make it move. What are the sounds of your future? Who are the people that are going to help you on this journey? Make it louder. Make it bolder. Make it messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. What is the vision of your future? We just have just a minute left. We got to get that vision tight in your mind. What is the vision of your future? Make it bright. Make it bolder. Who are the people you will save and help? What's the life you will lead? Now put yourself in that movie. You are the star of your movie. What does it feel like to be living your vision of your future? What does it feel like to help others on your mission? We've got 10 more seconds. Imprint that vision in your mind. Brighter, bolder, bigger. Now open your eyes. When you go on your entrepreneurial journey, you're going to hit a lot of challenges. Those challenges will test your conviction. They will test your commitment. But with a big, bright vision for your future, you will architect your exit. Thank you.
That was